I have an easement on my property. What does that mean? Basically, your neighbor has the right to use that part of your property. In this case, it sounds like they have the right to use your driveway to access their property, so you are not legally allowed to block their access in any way. No blocking the driveway with your car, no blocking the driveway to repave without working it out first with them, etc. There's a few other details, but they can vary, so you'd have to check the rules of your particular case. An easement is a right-of-way. It means that utility companies, road maintenance crews, can access that portion of your property to do what your city wants to do in their furtherance of providing services, like cleaning up roadside vegetation, installing underground utility service, slightly widening your road. It is also for the public to access federal land from your property if you happen to live way out of town, and that is the only access to that land. That would be generally for hunters. You can get a copy of your property plat at the clerk's office to see how many sides of your property have easements assigned. The power company has an easement on one end of my property. It takes a turn when it gets halfway across and follows the pole line up the street. The only thing they have ever done is to trim back the maple that grows under the line. Also, the easement is 10 foot wide and I can't put any permanent structures in it. An easement means you pay the property taxes, but other people get to use it. In general, it means you own it and someone else can use it. You have to find it written down to know exactly what it means and exactly how big it is. Is for parking and driving? My dad's 5-acre property has road easements on 3 sides. Because of the size of the easements, he ends up with 4.55 usable acres. In this case, it's likely the primary reason for this easement is right-of-way or access for the neighbor. There may be other services that run through it as well, such as water, drainage, sewer, culms, and electrical. It means you cannot build any permanent structure that may affect whatever the easement is for. If you want to find that out, you'll need to get hold of the registered plan, or plat I think they are called in the US, if that's where you are, which should have the easement shown plus information on encumbrance. Source: hold surveying degree. Someone neighbor, power company, etc. has the legal ability to access the section of land for which the easement references. In the case you describe, you own the driveway, but the house behind your property has the legal right to use the driveway. An easement, in general terms, is when you sell a tiny slice of the many small rights that come with property ownership. One of those small rights is the right to decide who's allowed on your driveway or not. When some owner, before you gave or more likely sold the right to use your driveway, it became an easement. Now you both share the right to use that driveway. As easement is a legal document attached to your deed. In my state at least, it's on file with the registrar of deeds for my county, and I can easily find it, make a copy of it. In my case, the property came with a shared driveway easement. This specifies, among other things, that neither party can block the driveway, who has to pay for maintenance, etc. You need to look yours up, see what it says. Who would be liable to keep it mowed and cleaned? The owner of the property in front or the person that uses it to get to their house that is behind mine? I have drainage easements on my property. For example, my neighborhood is small and we have a retention pond. The retention pond resides half on my property and half on my neighbor's. It's dry about half the year. When it's dry, my neighbor and I share responsibility in keeping it mowed. Despite the pond being shared drainage for the entire neighborhood, I also have wetlands on my property, so there is an access easement for inspections and for HOA management of the wetlands. Easements are analogous to fair use for copyright, i.e. with fair use, it means that even though someone might own the copyright, others can legally use part of the work for certain approved purposes. The analogy to property is that even though you own the property, the section designated as an easement can be accessed by others for certain approved purposes. In your example, the easement is probably specifically for the neighboring property owner to use for access to their property, but there are other easements such as for utilities. A common one in hilly areas is that if the street is on the uphill side of your property, then there's some kind of easement for access to the downhill side because that's where the sewer line will be. What kind of easement? It should state in your deed or rental agreement.